I'm a women's wear designer. I've been in the industry for 15 years, worked for a lot of the major companies, and I, I guess that I also advise a lot of startup designers on how to set up their fashion brands also. I do a lot of thinking, so I will spend probably a good 3 months planning everything in my head, and then I'd probably do a collection within a week on the machine. So it does involve a hell of a lot of planning. Unfortunately, because I work quite efficiently on the machine, I'm able to get it done without rushing or compromising the quality of the work. I think a lot of it's based on feeling, based on what I know the consumer would want from me, and then it's also working out what how to technically make it. So I'll work out the order in my head, and then sometimes we'd create a few variations of the same thing just to give us an option. And because I don't do too much drawing anymore, it's more about being on the machine. And if you make a mistake, 9 times out of 10, that kind of works out as a benefit to the design process. As a young person, I was always inspired by Victor and Rolf architecture, bold colours, so Roy Lichtenstein, that kind of artwork really. So I'm always trying to seek different ways of inspiration within those same kind of lines, I'd say. I think sometimes I've had to water the idea down slightly because I've done my really conceptual pieces, but I think in order to make a living, I've had to commercialise it a little bit just so that it's not too outlandish for the market. I'd say originality comes from my instinct, because I from personal experience, when I don't feel that something's right, then I'll generally just stop because I guess I'm not in the right headspace. I have to be, I don't do yoga or anything like that, but I have to be quite chilled to be focused and get myself, I guess, creatively in the right frame of mind, I'd say. I think travelling really does. Travelling really feeds my soul because you just get inspired by new cultures, new scenery, and it just helps to, I think, relax the mind. Because when you are a creative, you can sometimes be blinded by having to pay bills, and when you are relaxed, you just you are just limitless in terms of your capabilities and your vision. I think what drives me to create is, I have to refer back to how I started in the fashion industry. My mum taught me how to sew, and it was just about just being expressive with your creativity. The first thing I made was like a denim suit for women's wear, and I just thought, oh, I really love this. There was no kind of anything telling me that I shouldn't be doing this, because I used to do art. So I thought, this is what I'm really comfortable doing. And I'm the kind of person that I don't really listen to what others tell me. If it feels right to me, then I just can't be talked out of it, and that's ultimately, the best way to sum it up. No, I don't. I have no idea where that jacket is. Probably the model's got it, but she's probably thrown it away. But I've still got images of that first show I did, and that was a really inspiring moment. And I do encourage any kind of young people to treat every collection as their first, because you just approach it with that same level of excitement. I'm someone that I've always manufactured in the UK, and that's been an intentional thing. I don't really want my things made abroad because I believe in investing in the UK economy. It's just something that I don't know why I've always been or had that belief. It's just I always knew that manufacturing was going to come back to the UK at some point, and I had this vision probably 10 years ago, and it slowly is coming back. So I don't have to jump on that bandwagon because that's where I've always been. Music, food, and obviously people. It has to be about people, and just knowing knowing different experiences, because that can help you create a story behind your collections about who you visualise in this particular outfit. I try and design things for someone in mind, but I think that's probably more my business brain than my creative brain. So I'm not really the kind of person to lose sleep, you know. I've kind of learnt not to stress about things. I might kind of get a bit short sometimes if I'm under pressure, but sleep is really important to me. And gone are the days where I, function on 3-4 hours sleep, sometimes no sleep. I just think that you're more productive I'm more productive when I set my working hours. So I work insanely between 8:30 to like 5:30, and then I've got my evenings and weekends to myself to kind of recoup and then start again on Monday. In terms of the concept side, it's dictated a lot by fabric. So I might buy a fabric today, and it might take me a good 2 years to be in the right place to think, oh, I know what I want to do with this fabric. Because I made a collection using soundproofing fabric a while ago, and then I've used trampoline fabric. So those fabrics, they were sitting there for at least a good few months. Because I think one time I bought the fabric and I tried to do something on the day, but it just wasn't coming out right, so I just stopped and just left it until the actual time was right. So I guess fluid in the sense of being ready, but not fluid in the sense of buying it, the next day making it, the next day releasing it. Everything I tried to be at my own pace. I mean, McQueen, having worked there personally, that they taught me a hell of a lot. I mean, sitting down with some of their machinists, they are so skilled, and for me, being a good machinist helps you to be a really good designer. Who else? I think I hold a lot of admiration for student designers as well, because they are kind of dictating what the next generation of design will be all about. It's all well and good being inspired by the legends already, but I think the younger people bring something fresh to the table. And it's always important not to stifle their creativity by telling them that something is bad or anything, because bad garments can sell really well. It's just trying to find out what their creative process is and try and nurture that. I definitely learned a lot from younger students, and I think I've had to be open enough to learn from them, because I think as an older person, you can block off your mind and say you're not going to learn from young people because you've been in the industry for a certain amount of years. There's nothing that they can teach you, but there's so much that they can teach you if you open your heart and your mind to it. I'm a Christian, so that plays some part in terms of how I am as a designer, and just generally how I conduct myself in the fashion industry. I think that the reason why I chose to do women's wear was because I found men's wear quite boring. I mean, I got offered an internship on Savile Row years ago, and I just knew that the idea of doing suits the rest of my life, although it was great, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be as expressive as possible, and for me, women's wear allowed me to do that. That's why I spent 2 years in hairdressing, learning how to do hair, so that I was able to create the hairstyles for the models that I was working with, and learn a bit about makeup, and learn the head to toe, not just about the garment. And I'm always trying to speak to women and get into their psyche, just to understand how they shop. I guess, like I said, it's down to having an open mind, because even though certain things that were the norm when I was growing up, some things can be difficult to accept, and yeah, I guess you just always have to, I think it's impossible to be a good designer without having an open mind, because otherwise you're just going to stay rigid and not move with the times, and not develop your own style, because 10 years down the line you'll probably be designing the same stuff that you're designing now. And although you might have a clientele that will follow you, that clientele is never going to grow, because your mind hasn't. I'm trying Yeah, I'm trying for it to evolve, and I think that's where being inspired by the younger generation is helping me to grow my style and just move it along. Because although I have I'm clear on who my target consumer is, I definitely think that that can change over time, and there's more room for the 32-year-old sleep professional to be the 25-year-old up-and-coming professional. So I guess you're never really finished. My ideas generally come from my consumer. Yeah, I don't think you can ever really be finished as a creative, because you have to allow room for development. So the next collection is always meant to be better than the previous one. I think if you ever say that you're finished, then you've probably not really, you're not really doing your job properly. I think my earlier stuff was inspired a lot by Victor and Rolf, because when I did fashion shows, it was using the kind of masks that they did, and I don't know what it was about those two. It was really, I think it was probably that whole androgynous type of look that they had that I thought, wow, this is the kind of designer I want to be. And I guess the downside that I did at the time, I didn't open my mind up to other designers. So for a good few years, it was just about Victor and Rolf, Victor and Rolf, Victor and Rolf, until I, worked with McQueen and then learned that there's different ways of doing things and that kind of stuff. So